The covers did their job protecting the pitch from overnight rain, and Central North openers tried to do theirs against Newcastle. Alan Humble off to the right start against Jace Lawson. But even with some offline bowling, the run rate was at a crawl. And when Andrew Maher and Joe Price combined to remove Humble, it didn't improve in a hurry. Rod Nyman did his best, knocking up 35 in good time, while Adam Jones looked to back up his 62 scored yesterday with another solid knock. Spinner Nick Foster spoiled that idea in his first over, trapping Jones for 7. Central North eventually all out for 181. At number 2 Sports Ground, Nathan Munro was helping to build a big total for North Coast and add to his solid claims for higher rep honours. Shots like this didn't hurt. Matthew Dryce wasn't missing out either, and together they put on 93 for the 4th wicket. Dryce top scoring with 68, Munro 40. North Coast finished with 249, but it could have been much more. Soccer on a rugby league ground. It was a battle to tell which code was playing at Marathon Stadium last night, with both sides getting physical early. Daniel McBreen, one of 3 players to be yellow carded in the first half alone. The scoring rate for goals nowhere near as quick, with Ante Dior missing a great chance for Sydney from close range. The visitors almost gave Newcastle the opening goal with a mix-up at the back, while Ray Eunice took his new role as a defender a bit too far. After half-time, another indiscretion cost his side dearly. Bonavolia scoring just his 2nd for the season, but it looked to have turned Newcastle's fortunes around. Off the bench, Salem Ass's return from injury was less than a minute old when he was booked. His influence up front was clear, however Newcastle squandered 2 good chances in as many minutes. Sydney coach Alan Hunter lost his cool with referee Breeze, but the visitors began to dominate. Pressure soon turned to points, but it came the cruellest way, an own goal in the 90th minute.
Comes back to communication. We can't be copping a goal like that at that stage of the game.
We easily deserved the point, regardless of how the goal went in.
The usual push and shove at the start as the fleet headed off in 20km/h southeasterly winds. Craig Nichols had his Typhoon Fabrics craft setting the early pace, and some more familiar names not far behind, including Race 1 winner Chris Nicholson. Sydney boat 2GB made sure the Belmont boats didn't have it all their own way, staying in touch with the leaders as well. But defending champion Lee Napton was once again stuck midfield and desperate to make a push forward. Incredibly, he stormed home to finish 5th, but John Boyd's Skill Engineering was always on the mark. After pushing through from 5th to 1st, the Belmont crew didn't look back. Skilled racing away to win in great time and take the overall lead in the regatta.
Camping equipment still set up, some food and even clothing was found by fishermen on a rock jutting out into the Dilgri River 2 days ago. Police say by the look of the equipment and campsite perched on the mountain that nothing's been touched for anything up to 2 weeks.
Where the camping gear was located is in an area that's very inaccessible, and as such has caused us concern.
Police aren't even sure how many people occupied the site.
We assume that the camper is male by the clothing that was left behind. Other than that, we know nothing at all.
Yesterday, searchers were winched down to the remote campsite and retrieved equipment in the hope that someone could identify it and might know of the owner's whereabouts. Today, a larger search was launched with 6 men in the rugged terrain looking for any clues, but so far to no avail. Amongst the camp items were various food packets bought from Gloucester stores.
I'd say if nothing's found today, that we'll wait to hear of any missing person reports, which we haven't heard of so far.
Adam Harper, NBN News. Last year, thousands of people flocked around Newcastle's foreshore for New Year's Eve celebrations, and this year it's shaping up to be the hotspot in town once again. And to ensure it's a safe celebration, Newcastle Police are putting on extra officers.
In the vicinity of 90 police in the Newcastle area alone, and that'll be in around the CBD, the Hamilton area, the foreshore area, around the train stations and public transport areas.
But for now, all efforts are concentrated on getting the big show together in time, event organisers adding their finishing touches around town. However, this is the calm before the party storm, because revellers will be looking to see in the new year with a bang. And that's exactly what they'll get if these two Newcastle pyrotechnicians have anything to do with it. They spent the afternoon wiring up the fireworks display.
It's going to be around about $1,000 worth of fireworks a minute go up, and will last for 10 minutes, a little bit longer, and it should be a good show, yeah.
While expectations are high for one of the biggest New Year's Eve celebrations so far in Newcastle, police are urging the public to enjoy the occasion safely.
If that means a caution is issued on a particular instance for a minor infringement, so be it. If it also means that we have to come down with the full hand of the law and arrest those people and bring them back to the station and have them charged, we will do that.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
A 15-minute pyrotechnic display lit up the Newcastle skyline. 9 o'clock fireworks attracted families back to the foreshore this New Year's Eve. Thousands took to the streets, police ensuring the harbour side remained alcohol-free. Partygoers packed the city's popular restaurants. At Customs House, it was a 70s trip back in time, when the idea for hair was the bigger the better. At the Harbourview Centre, Latin was the flavour. Hundreds turned out for a beach disco at the Castle nightclub. Wherever you went, there was the same cheerful catch cry. Music sensation The Whitlams entertained a massive crowd at the Queen's Wharf Brewery. The music only stopped for the countdown. Creeping into the early hours, police maintained their strong presence. Police say it was a relatively quiet night with no major troubles.
There were a number of individuals that were arrested for various offences, offensive conduct, language, carrying of knives, malicious damage.
Perhaps the biggest drama for most was the long walk home. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. By the time fire crews arrived at 8:30 last night, the unoccupied home was already engulfed in flames. A Merriweather Street neighbour filmed the efforts of 20 fire officers who fought to control the blaze for close to half an hour. The weatherboard cottage had been earmarked for demolition this week. The owners who planned to build a new home watched on last night. They now face an even bigger demolition bill.
What could we do? Nothing but stand like everybody else and just watch it go up in flames.
Fire crews are being praised for their efforts in saving homes next door from the blaze. So many onlookers had gathered to watch the spectacle. Extra police were called in to monitor traffic. Teenage arsonists are believed responsible. Several young people were witnessed running away from the scene minutes before the fire erupted.
A bunch of young kids swearing up and down the road, and I think alcohol, intoxicated.
The owners say 2 months ago authorities had to be called to disperse a large crowd of teenagers that had gathered at the derelict cottage. It's understood a pre-demolition party had been advertised on the internet. The same night there was another smaller fire which was extinguished.
I don't know what makes those people tick that, you know, as the sun goes down they must just jump off the D-bend and, you know, who wants to burn a house?
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The alarm was raised on Friday when fishermen discovered an abandoned campsite at Dilgri River. Camping equipment was still set up, food and personal belongings were also left at the site. A full-scale search over the weekend failed to locate any trace of the camper, but a vital piece of the puzzle has now been solved. A Gloucester man has recognised his camping equipment, recovered by police from Dilgri River. It's believed the man lent his equipment to 38-year-old Richard Lausek on Christmas Eve for a camping trip. Police say it's not out of character for Mr Lausek to wander off.
From our information, he tends to lead an itinerant lifestyle around the Gloucester Barrington tops, but even out in the western New South Wales and Queensland.
Mr Lausek hasn't been seen in over a week, police unable to rule out the possibility that he could be lost. While the search has officially been called off, police are still appealing for Mr Lausek to contact them to confirm his safety and whereabouts.
If anybody knows his whereabouts or has seen him since Christmas Eve, we'd ask them to contact Gloucester Police Station.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
If this was a war between the Aussies and the lone American, then the Yank got points early, with the home side suffering a big casualty, losing its current national champion. His brother John then took up the challenge to Scott Slay as the carnage continued behind them. It didn't stop the battle up front, with Pine and Slay door to door in some tight racing that left everyone breathless, while the scars of battle were left on the concrete wall. It was barely a flesh wound as the American wound up for one last charge to the front, and at the end of the 30-lapper final, he was well in front to take the checkered flag from Pine. Earlier in the night, the Lita sprint cars had a tough time just staying the right way up. A host of spills highlighted their night before Stephen Brown eventually got home first with his machine intact. It was the two-wheeled machines that featured at the Central Coast overnight, with the 500cc solos taking centre stage. Newcastle's own international champion Todd Wiltshire reached the four-man final in style, but he had to settle for second in the main event, with world number 2 American Billy Hamill the winner. The solos head to Newcastle tomorrow night. Even if you're not a sailor, you couldn't help but be impressed with a sight like this. Organisers were extra pleased with this fleet, the largest ever for the 20th such race to Coffs Harbour, with 112 greeting the starter. Maxie Marchioness has never sailed the 226 nautical mile race before, but the crew wasn't taking any chances, enlisting its own chef for the journey north. But every crew got its teeth into hard work, as unfavourable 40 to 50 km/h northeasterly winds and rising seas bit into the fleet once outside the protection of Pittwater. Last year's Line Honours winner Infinity 3 had strong claims to defend her crown, but the boat was forced to do a penalty turn to avoid a protest and saw her slip back in the field. Coffs Harbour entry RSL.com is out to make the trip home the quickest, with its skipper Pierre Gall twice winning the race in 1997 and 98. Its biggest rival, though, Xena, was the first out of Pittwater and late today was still making good time up the coast. In fact, if she can hold her current lead, Xena's expected in Coffs Harbour late tomorrow afternoon. The fleet is expected to hug the east coast on the trip north, given the southern currents wrong strongly further out to sea.
The figures paint a damning picture of elective surgery waiting times at Hunter hospitals. Since March last year, the number of patients who had to wait more than 12 months jumped from 44 to an astonishing 572. Hunter Area Health admits it has a problem, but argues it's doing everything it can to cope with unprecedented demand.
We've put $4 million extra into booked surgery for this year, and we're confident of bringing those waiting times down.
The average waiting time at these three hospitals among those that has risen dramatically.
There may well be surgeons who have shorter waiting times, and we are very keen to help people if they believe they're waiting for long periods of time for care to work with their general practitioner to find another surgeon, alternate surgeon to provide that care.
Meantime, John Hunter Hospital's emergency department recorded its busiest day in its 10-year history yesterday. 236 people were treated in a 24-hour period, compared to 186 patients for the same day last year.
So I think we've noticed an increase in the male age group between 20 and 24, all alcohol-related injuries, if you like, brawls downtown and elsewhere.
Last year's event attracted more than 110,000 people to the foreshore. With such success as a starting point, this year organisers are confident of creating even more interest in maritime history. And what better place to start than back in time? A theatrical aspect has been added to the festival, with this morning's Icelandic exchange of vows at Horseshoe Beach filmed as part of a pop musical, Sealed with All My Love, to be shown at celebrations later this month.
Unique also is the fact that it will be held in the Lee Wharf A shed, which will be the first time that building's been utilised since it was redeveloped by Honeysuckle. So, yeah, all in all, it should be a very special presentation.
The romance is set to continue on the water when two grand old ladies of the sea sail into local waters.
We'll have the square-rigged barkentine, 110 feet, the windward bound, who'll be visiting us and open for inspection. And also a special 4.5 schooner built in 1922 for a member of the French royal family, the La Violante.
The weekend-long festival starts on the 19th of this month. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Of course, they don't know much about Australia, so I guess I'll be there trying to break down some of the stereotypes.
All three have won national titles before, but never a 16-foot crown and never together. For skipper John Boyd, it was even sweeter to do it at home with his twin brother Gary and best mate Mick Jackson. Skilled was in command since the second heat of the regatta, winning 4 straight to have an unbeatable lead even before today's final heat. Incredibly, yesterday's 4th was the crew's worst finish, but most satisfying.
Relief mainly, just got across the line, we all just sat back and went, good, that's done, let's go out and have fun for the rest of it.
Even after a night of celebration, the crew was far from mutinous, simply wanting to enjoy every minute of it.
Go and have some fun today. Yeah. It's we can relax and just go and enjoy it.
Yep, enjoy the ride.
And enjoy it they did, winning today's heat in great conditions. BC Coatings and Altus Construction filled the overall minor placings.
Some of the Hunter's key attractions for visitors and locals alike are the beaches and waterways. Coast Care has taken on the holiday job of teaching a little more understanding and appreciation of the watery environment. Lesson 1 in its summer program, a beginner's guide to snorkelling, allowing a glimpse of the underwater world.
We teach some basic skills so they can snorkel comfortably, and we teach them a bit about conditions, learning to find safe entry points and safe exit points.
The program runs for 2 weeks, but isn't just about snorkelling. It's more about learning to enjoy as well as protect the coastal environment through a range of activities.
Rock platform walks, mangrove walks, sand modelling, art, surfing clinics.
And for those who just want to learn about how to keep their head above water, or even below, the Department of Sport and Recreation's annual Learn to Swim classes also begun. The 10-day courses aim to teach water confidence and proficiency to eager and not so keen beginners, equipping them with the skills to stay out of trouble around the water. Adam Harper, NBN News.
We'd certainly hope that the Weeks family doesn't obstruct and doesn't do anything to give these families another kicking, because really they don't need it.
Never one to be far from the beach. It was a relaxed Josh Blair back home in Newcastle today, returning with a 3-point series lead. The Swansea Belmont-based Ironman finished second overall in yesterday's triple sprint-style round 3.
A few things didn't go my way in the first 2 races, and I sort of took it as each race and really worked that last one.
He won the final race of the day with defending series champion and overall round 3 winner Kai Hurst just behind. That's how the pair now sit on the ladder as well.
So I really had to pull out something, it's just a little bit disappointing, in my last few events, trying to back up from last year and the year before, it sort of, it doesn't really compare.
Hurst went on to claim Blair should win the series, but the 23-year-old wasn't buying into any favouritism today.
Tried to turn it around too and put the pressure on me, sort of saying I'm the man out in front now. But obviously he's come out now and showed that he can still win, and he's not out of it yet.
Steve Pullen, though, had a bad day. He was joint leader heading into round 3 but suffered breathing problems early in the day and has dropped back to 4th overall in the race for the title. Tugan's Stephen King now 3rd. Trying something new, United were divided at training tonight, each player donning old playing strips to add a bit of colour to a normal training session. Some stood out more than others, but it's results on the paddock that everyone wants to see.
We've all basically had a good look at ourselves, or I have, and we're not too happy with the way we've been going. We're getting draws and we're playing quite well, but you just need the 3 points. You'd rather play poorly and win than play well every week and get a draw.
The lineup for Friday is again disrupted, with Chris Zoricic a major concern with a fractured toe, the defender desperate to play against his old club.
Taking the steps of questionable steps of probably having injections and whatnot, and we'll just see about that. We'll make decisions about that tonight.
2 are to be omitted from the squad announced today, with Andy Harper's hamstring said to be fine and Asala Massey also named. There are a number of names in this Sydney Olympic camp though, not just Newcastle boy Greg Owens, that Lee Sterry's wary of.
When you look through their side, when you look at the Halpins and the Marusic's and all that, I think we'd be more worried about them than what we will Greg Owens at the moment. His confidence is high, he's a very good young player.
Meanwhile, United's home game clash with the Newcastle Knights on March 9 at Marathon Stadium should also be sorted out soon.
I think if you look at the logistics and the common sense approach, we'd like to see it remain, Friday soccer.
Interestingly, an AFL game scheduled for Newcastle is also set down for that weekend to be played at the number 1 sports ground. When coal miner Phil Jurt arrived home from night shift, he had no idea what was in store. The avid triathlete had agreed to an interview about his sport and described how the Foster Ironman is the event in any competitor's career.
It's the best you can do in Australia. There's no bigger race in Australia.
Well, what if I could tell you that you'd won one of those wild cards and that you're actually in it?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, that's what I'm telling you, mate. You've won one and you're in it.
Joking. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's unreal.
Phil had just missed qualifying on his own merit, but his wife Kyra wrote to organisers and won him a rare wildcard entry.
Overwhelmed, yeah. That's what I wanted to do, and yeah, that's awesome.
Given Phil's story, it's easy to see why they want him to compete in the gruelling event. 5 years ago, he weighed 150 kilograms, but on a promise to his dying mother, he pledged to get fit and hasn't looked back since, competing in 3 half-Ironman events already. In fact, after he found out today's news, he was out training for the big day, which is in April. The other Hunter competitor lucky enough to snare a spot, Kelly Martin.
What would your reaction be if, say, the phone rang and they said, look, you're in?
Oh, over the moon. That's it, that's what I'm hoping for, yeah.
Well, I've actually been told that you're in, so you're in.
No way!
While it took some sinking in, the bank manager was quickly on the phone to spread the news, but it makes you wonder why there's so much excitement for a race involving a 4-kilometre swim, a 180-kilometre bike leg and a marathon to finish off. Jim Callanan, NBN News. The Mississippi missile Scott Slay has already won twice at Tomago and was joined at the circuit today by fellow American Speedway star Corey Cruiseman. Given Slay's success since arriving in Australia, the Super Sedan star just can't get enough racing.
We've had a lot of fun in the race car. Australia's a beautiful place to look around. Since we've got a win, it made it a whole lot better than if we would have come over and not won anything, but I'm really happy with the success we've had so far.
So how do two Speedway stars celebrate? With a burnout, of course. The two Yanks will actually repeat this performance in V8-powered machines tomorrow night as a two-man team against Australia's pair of burnout champions.
At home, I've done that in my own car, leaving the red light every once in a while, but not for 90 seconds in circles and trying to get a ticket, so we're going to see what happens here. That'll be fun.
Come Saturday night, though, Slay will be gunning for his hat-trick of Super Sedan wins at Newcastle Speedway and his fourth since arriving in Australia.
He certainly doesn't want to miss out either, especially with it being his old club.
Every morning, Cole Sutton sharpens his chisel before getting to work making toys for children. His latest project was sparked when a fellow Rotarian returned from an aid mission to Nepal.
And he saw the children over there had nothing to play with, and he got the idea of making these things. And he used to walk around with a rope around his waist, and the kids all wanted the rope so they could skip with it.
And so skipping ropes it was, and plenty of them, with the goal of making a couple of thousand. The blanks are stacked and ready to go. Cole's Newcastle garage come workshop is packed with small projects, but he says it's his latest and greatest effort that's given him the most pleasure.
Well, it's given me a lot of pleasure if I think of something I do make some unfortunate kid happy. I'm very happy about that.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Newcastle City Council last year recorded an operating loss of $5.3 million. That's despite rates $35 higher than Lake Macquarie residents pay.
The difference between theory and reality. The figure of $5 million is a depreciation figure. To comply with an accounting principle, it does not reflect cash.
Cessnock Council rated the second worst in the state, almost $5.5 million in the black.
A loss is okay to have for 1 or 2 years, but it really is unsustainable. It means you're living beyond your means, much the same as an individual or any other business. A surplus or a profit is sustainable, and for the ratepayers that means that you can maintain services.
Lake Macquarie Council's bottom line boasted a $20 million surplus. The council ranked in the top 10 of local government, so too Maitland Council with a $12 million surplus. Meantime, many Newcastle homeowners are expected to be fuming, with rates tipped to rise after the release of the latest Valuer-General land valuations. The price of land at Merewether has jumped a whopping 76%. It's also up significantly in other suburbs. The Lord Mayor is pushing for a base rate system to be introduced.
After all, part of the success of the local economy as far as Newcastle is concerned is to have healthy land values. And if we've got land values where people can't afford to pay rates on, then those values are going to drop.